Welcome back, guys. So this is my September wrap-up of all the books that I read in September, and it's a little shorter than I had anticipated. I had such high hopes at the beginning of the month, as you would have seen if you saw my TBR game video, but that's okay. Things happen. A lot of things happened this month. So I did get some reading done, and hopefully I'll get a little bit more done in October. But for now, here is the video. So the first book I read for September was A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson, and I am so glad I finally got to read this book. I loved it. It definitely deserves the hype. I just felt like it was really well written. It was a pretty quick read, but it didn't feel like it flowed very well. I felt like the characters were pretty well fleshed out and that the plot really worked, and just the writing style I really enjoyed. This book basically follows a girl who is entering her senior year of high school, and she has to do a capstone project for her history class, and she decides to investigate the assumed murder of a girl from her high school several years back. So they had declared a murderer, but she is not sure that he actually did it. And to make things more complicated, the presumed murderer, was found dead in the woods soon after the girl who's presumed dead disappeared. So I just loved this character also so much. She was just so great. She was tough and spunky, and she did not worry about telling some white lies or big lies to interview the people she wanted to interview and get the information she wanted to get, but I was kind of here for it. It was just great, and I was in love with this book. So I think I might have said before that I usually don't give murder mysteries very high ratings, even though I love them, just because I feel like a lot of times the writing style or writing quality isn't necessarily where I want it to be, or maybe it's just feels like they completely jumped the shark, or like there's some plot holes. But this one was good. It just felt good. Everything about it. There weren't any parts where I was like, oh, this is awkward, or I wish they had done something different. So I am going to give this book 4 stars. Oh, speaking of, I was thinking back to the books that I read for my queer romance reading vlog, and I'm going to bump up A Lady for a Duke to 4 stars. So that's it for now, and I will let you guys know what I read next. Up next, I read 2 books by Elizabeth Acevedo. So the first one I read was With the Fire on High, and this one is about a Dominican, Puerto Rican, American girl named Imoni, and she got pregnant when she was a freshman in high school, and she was able to have the baby and stay in school. It's her senior year, and she is trying to figure out what she's going to do with her life, basically. She doesn't really have big plans for after graduating high school. She's kind of thinking of just getting a job and trying to support her family, but she really loves cooking. And her school, her senior year, offers an elective basically that is a Spanish food cooking class, and there's a trip in the middle of the year to Spain. So she really wants to go, but she doesn't think she can afford it, and doesn't obviously want to be separated from her kid. And so she's kind of just trying to figure that out, but starting to embrace more of her passion and figure out what is best for her. And there's also a bit of romance in this book as well. So it deals with a lot of issues of family topics. Her relationship with her father is strained at times. She lives with her grandmother, and they also go through some tough times. And it also just talks a lot about growing up Dominican, Puerto Rican, and Black. And there are also recipes. So I did not realize I could have put this in my last cooking vlog, but there are 3 recipes in this book, and I really want to try at least one of them. They looked really good. So this book was really enjoyable. It was just a great insight into this girl's life, and I really loved all the characters. They were all complex, but at the same time, it is a book that has a happy ending, and was very hopeful. So I'm going to give this one 3.5 stars. And then the next book that I read by Elizabeth Acevedo is The Poet X, and this one was an interesting format. It is written all in poems by our protagonist, who's also our narrator, and she kind of has a journal. She's writing a poem a day, and so she's also in high school. Her name is Xiomara, and she is a sophomore, I believe, and she comes from a very religious household. Her mother is very Catholic and has some strict rules about how she must behave, about dating as well. She's not supposed to date until she graduates college, and Xiomara is starting to doubt her faith. She's also starting to experience romantic attraction to a boy in her class, and so she's trying to figure out how to manage all of this while still staying on her mom's good side. And so this one I also really enjoyed it. I'm going to give this one 3.5 stars as well. I think I loved the format. I really think it's cool when authors do like a poetry format. For one, because it just is such a faster read, but it's also just cool to see something where it's mixed up a little. And that's my favorite kind of poetry too, is where it's more like less flowery and more prose kind of. They talk about slam poetry in this book, and that's a little bit more what it reads like. So, and again, I really liked the character. In some ways, she was very relatable, seeing how she bottles up all her feelings inside and is just trying to please everybody. So, but again, this book is one that has a lot of hope, and that was really great to see. I also read 3 books for my cooking vlog, so I explain more what they're about and how I felt about them in the vlog itself. But really quickly, I read Natalie Tan's Book of Luck and Fortune by Roselle Lim, and that one is about a woman who is Asian American and moves back to Chinatown in San Francisco after her mother dies and decides to open up a restaurant. And totally forgot to mention this in the vlog, but there is some magical realism as well, which I thought was really cool, the way that the author put it into the story. And then I read Body and Soul Food by Abby Collette, which is the first in her Books and Biscuits mystery series. It's a cozy mystery about 2 long-lost twins who reunite and decide to open a bookstore / soul food cafe, and then there's a murder. And then I read Sweetness and Lightning, the first 3 volumes. It is a manga, and it's by Guido Amagakure, and it follows a single dad who runs into one of his students, and I don't think he knows that she's his student at the time, but they basically decide to start cooking food together. And so far it seems like a found family kind of story. Hopefully it won't turn into a romance kind of story because she is underage. But yeah, other than that, it was cute. So those are those 3 books. And then that is actually the last of what I read this month. So part of that is because I've just been really busy with work and my internship and trying to fix my car and trying to apply for future jobs and trying to have a social life. I just haven't had a lot of time for reading. But it's also partially because I've been reading The Priory of the Orange Tree, which I think is the longest book I've ever read on my own. And it's very long. I am enjoying it, but it's just going to take me a while. So you might notice I didn't actually get through any of the books that I planned to read in my original TBR video at the beginning of September, but that's okay. I'm still going to try to work through them in October. I'm not going to let myself be restricted by them. Obviously, I didn't this month. There were some other books that I needed to read or wanted to read for different reasons, but those are books that I would like to read eventually. So it's not over. Well, thank you guys for sticking with me this long, and I'll see you in the next video. Happy October.